Hey, what's up YouTube? It's me, levelengine here. So, last Sunday, I built the final level of Castlevania III Gold Edition. This is my Castlevania III ROM hack. I put most of the emphasis here on different level design, even if what you can do with reVamp, the editor for Castlevania 3, is kind of limited in some ways. So if you're curious as to what this looked like, you can just watch this video as I build the final stage. As you see here, I tried a few custom railings that I didn't like the look of, so I just took the ones that were actually a part of the original level. I then decided to assemble a few more graphics, such as this pillar that I'm going to use to put the birds on. There are going to be a few birds in this level that are just standing on the pillars, and then like when you get close, they're going to try and attack you. I mean, this exact room also had those birds, so I figured. I just occasionally check back and forth to see which tiles I'm screwing up by changing some of the tiles. Yeah, if you could already take a quick glance at the room with the crescent moon, like one of the tiles in there is glitched. Now I'll just put the stairway in. That'll lead to the next room. I'm just going to put in a few more railings, and then eventually the enemies and the power-ups. I'm still constructing a few more graphics to try and make the room look a bit more interesting. And now I decide to put the enemies in. So I move a few of the objects in the background for the sake of placing the birds on top of the pillars so that they'll actually look like they're standing on something. I mean, you don't have to do it this way, but it makes a lot more sense that it would actually appear that the bird stands on something. I occasionally do test what I have so far. Honestly, there wasn't much to test. But I did figure out that the first 4 rows in the background, all that sky and stuff, I can't really touch that without screwing anything up. That's pretty much like some sort of custom effect that's part of the level that I can't really touch. Well, if I do touch it, I'll probably glitch things up. So I decided to leave those first 4 rows untouched and move around the level a bit. And here's what we have so far. What you're going to see in the final version for this room is not that much different. I'm just changing some palettes around now and seeing what I can do with them. And then I decide to move to the second room, which is still part of A1. This is the clock tower room, which is using the exact same tile set as stage 2, so I don't bother touching anything in the tile set. I just use whatever tiles were already there to begin with. Okay, well, maybe I change like one of these blocks of 4 tiles, but that's about it. I look at the few places in which I could put small gears, and yes, you can only put them in predetermined locations based on what reVamp lets you do. You can't just drag and drop the gear wherever you want to put it. And if you hadn't seen earlier me climb down to this room, when you put the gear sprite, you only see the teeth of the gear. Like the rest of it, that's actually an object, so you gotta kind of put that over it. Yeah, I know, it's strange. I was like, what the hell's going on? Is this how the game is made? Now I'm just setting the graphics around to put the enemies in that I want. I wanted to put those fuzzbusters, but I had trouble getting the winged demons to appear, the other enemies that you'd ideally be killing, because I kind of want to make this level have a bunch of enemies, but there's not too many of these power-up enemies that I could drag and drop, so I'm kind of limited with what I can do. Since I can't get the winged demons to appear, I eventually do go back to using the Medusa heads that were originally here in the first place. And here I am just trying to get the basic layout of this room. This room was probably one of the toughest to test because of all the Medusa heads that would keep appearing at... Well, actually, I think they usually appear at the height that you're at. But still, they move in a wavy-like pattern, and if you have like a good reach, or you don't move around very quickly, then it is pretty hard to take them out. Or you might just get hit, because you might just miss the Medusa, and well, yeah. You're going to see that that last jump off the gear is one of the toughest in the game. Well, during testing, this was one of the toughest jumps I had to clear, because that last jump in this room, you need to be at a pretty precise spot, and the Medusa heads don't exactly allow you to do that, and the fact that the gear is a moving platform, so you won't be standing still either. So I decided to put some more scenery into this level to try and decorate it a bit more. And also, since the headless pirates are in the same tile set as the Medusa heads, I go and start putting those in the level too. So yeah, this room is going to be composed of Medusa heads, headless pirates, and a few knights. Because the knights are in the same tile set as the gear's teeth, which is like S2. So really, before you want to start putting enemies in your level, you kind of want to have the right sprite settings. Otherwise, your enemies will just appear to be glitched up. This is ROM hacking, so yeah. And in case you hadn't seen, those fuzzbusters are now just like a bunch of dots. They're glitched up. But this video is going so fast that you kind of have to pause to take a look at them. So yeah, the fuzzbusters and then the Medusa heads, headless pirates that I actually do plan to use are all in different tile sets. So I figured this out and I had to ditch the fuzzbusters for the sake of things not appearing to be glitched up, and that's when I put the knights in their place. This room underwent a lot of modifications between then and now. I think this room might have been the most heavily changed. And if you hadn't noticed, while I tested this, I made the blocks that crumble and break a different color for the sake of being able to more easily identify them. And now with that room out of the way, I start to change the one below it, which will then lead to A2. I think to myself what graphics I want to use for this room. I kind of want to change it up a bit. And I figured that we hadn't used the graphics of the main hall. I changed those from stage 8 to what you saw in Crow Keep. So I figured let's use the graphics from the main hall. They look nice. They probably fit well here at this point, considering this is like Dracula's Keep. So I changed the graphics to those of the main hall that you would see in stage 8 of this game. I changed the palettes around, trying to figure out which ones will work. I eventually decide on this for the foreground, and then open up a web page that has a map of stage 8 and look at its graphics for reference. With that, I start to put the curtains together, which I'll then use as decoration, of course. Just like as you'd see in the bottom left corner, I look at the bottom left corner and try and match the tiles exactly. It takes me a while to do, but yes, I do get it done. Right now the tiles aren't matching exactly. I eventually figure this out, but I'm just putting them together so I can hang them up. Yeah, hanging up virtual curtains is so much fun. And then I started to change the tiles that I didn't put exactly correctly the first time around, so yeah. So far, here's our little main hall room. And the next 3 rooms are also going to have this tile set, so just spoiling things. And I decided I want to have a little sort of shading effect underneath these blocks, but I don't want it to be too dark, so I just play around with different tile sets for a bit, see what I like. I eventually just decide on those gray tiles. I start to see what I can do with the stairways, try and make them look alright. Sure, this uses up a few extra tiles, but hey. I then start to reconstruct the bricks that you'd see in stage 8, like the cracks in the bricks in the walls. I create like both halves of those. Yeah, if you haven't noticed already, everything is like a group of 4 8x8 tiles. Then I start to map out the level geometry. Again, putting shading underneath those blocks. Then making this, and going to put some blocks there. And eventually I'll put the enemies in, which will be a few dragon pillars. So I try to put some windows in like I had in that level. I only have like 4 palettes to work with, one of which I can't even change because it's the default one. I try and change some colors around that notice that things don't really exactly look alright, so I decide to just not even bother using the windows, and I put some hand railings. I put some more hand railings by changing a few more tiles around. Then put in a few more. I mean, there's no necessary reason to do this, because I don't really... Okay, maybe I do see that bottom row, I don't know. I start putting enemies in, but then I notice that I can't even change the palette of the sprites in this specific room. I'll be able to do it in the next one, but I don't even know why I can't. So that's when I changed my mind and decided to put the dragon pillars in instead. I was able to change the sprite palettes and say this room or this one, but not the room that I'm going to put the pillars in. That one just, nope. And I playtest my level a few times, trying to get down here. Right, so there's a bone dragon, as you'd see. So now I put the dragon pillars in, also known as Pillar of Bones in the editor. So I try and find like nice curtain colors. What color do you think the curtains should be? I then go back and put some spikes in the clock tower so you can't just jump down a few places. I know it seems kind of extreme to do this, but hey. I don't want this level to exactly be broken. I then remove the spikes and just put a straight up hole. I mean, if the whole ground is spikes, then why not? In the original Castlevania, that pit of spikes was kind of like just getting killed. If you'd fallen there, you probably wouldn't be able to jump out anyway. And if you like weren't like having post-hit invincibility, you touched the spikes, it was instant death anyway. So yeah, I don't think putting a hole will change too much. So I move on to the next room to start putting the level geometry down, and then eventually enemies, of course. So that since I discarded the spikes, I just remove those graphics and then put another set of graphics for the blocks and the curtain, but like on top of each other. Well, actually blocks on top of the curtains, more like it. Put some more hand railings and bricks in, more decoration. And then I just start playing around with the level geometry for a bit, and then eventually put some enemies in. Bye! So I put the floating eye up there that you're going to have to attack. I remove all the power-ups and enemies and then put a 1-up and on the far left where you'd have to either fly to that ledge as Alucard or climb there as Grant. I mean, you could jump down there, but I don't see how you'd get back up unless you had either one of Grant or Alucard to get yourself out of there. Grant climbs walls and Alucard could turn into a bat. I then put an Axe Knight up on the ledge just before the stairs, a few sleeping bats around, and then I put some mummies on the ground, which explains why there's this huge flat area. I then start removing nearly everything in the room after that, because I start building that too. Again, this looks very similar to the room before it, but it's also going to keep the sprites some of the miscellaneous sprites. Actually, it's going to change them a bit, but it's also going to use those miscellaneous sprites for the sake of platforming. So it's going to be a moving platform that you have to get on to ride from the right ledge, which you get up to by the stairs, to the left ledge. Unless you're, say, Grant. Then you could climb up there if you want to do so. So I put some curtains. Put a tilting ledge. You gotta hop across this. You gotta make a narrow jump and get onto the platform there. I then decide to move stuff around so I can put a sleeping bed on that post there. That really narrow one that's 2 blocks wide. This will be right before the door to Dracula's main keep, where you fight Dracula. So I test the level again. And died the bone dragon on my way down, so I try again. Yep, I died quite a few times if I'm not mistaken, because the room with the clockwork is pretty tough. All the graphics are glitched up because I forgot to change the sprite memory settings. So I go and do that later, of course. Now I test the level layout and I realize that putting an axe knight after you jump off that pendulum is kind of overkill, because you could easily get hit by one of the axes and just knocked off and then have to ride the pendulum again. Hoping not to get hit by the axe again, to have to ride the pendulum again. So I moved the axe knight back a bit. Even then, still positioned in such a way that it's tough to deal with. If you don't see what the final version of this room looks like, then you will, like, when you play this game. So I'm probably going to make another video announcing the release of Castlevania Gold Edition, once that's actually done. So I thought that might be interesting for you guys to see, if you want to see how Castlevania 3 levels or hacks are built with reVamp. So yeah, peace.